In this video, we will discuss about Lightning Web Components in Salesforce. So let's start. So what is LWC? LWC is Lightning Web Components. It's a new programming model for building Lightning components in Salesforce Lightning. It is built using HTML and modern JavaScript. So you can use for look and UI for user interface. We have HTML, and for all the logic thing, how the data and how the business logic will operate, we have JavaScript for that. And in HTML also we can render conditionally and according to the business logic. Code runs natively in browsers. We use it uses modern web standards. Okay. Next, the component bundle of an LWC or Lightning Web Component consists HTML file, a JavaScript file, a JS meta XML file, and this three will be the mandatory. Now we have optional, we have CSS file and SVG file. So in HTML file, we will have all the look and feel. Then in JavaScript, we will have all the logic, how the data will go and how the data will be going to that HTML file and how it will be viewed by a particular user and how the user experience will look like. Then we have XML file in which we will define where we want to place that or where we want to use that particular LWC component in Salesforce Lightning. CSS file is if we want to add means like if we want to enhance the look and feel according to according to some of the thematic approach, or we want to change the background and the color of that particular stuff of a portion of that type, then we can work on CSS file. If we are working on icons, then we can have a SVG file. Additionally, we can add JavaScript files for sharing code. The first three which I talked about was HTML, JS, and Meta XML. So as you can see on the screen, so these three are mandatory, or it will be created when you create a project in LWC. So as you can see, the project name is Summer 22 Notification. Summer 22 Notifications.html and .js meta XML file has been created. So what is the difference between, or like how the syntax is different in LWC and Aura? In Aura component, we were writing Aura attribute to define any attribute in that particular Aura component. So the name of that particular component as my property. But in Lightning Web Component, we are just writing @API my property. The variable will be declared. Then to get any value, we were using explanation v dot my attribute. So v was the value provider of my attribute, but in Lightning Web Components, in the parentheses, we are just writing my attribute to get the value. We have to register, and then we have to write handler in Aura component, but in Lightning Web Component, we have to just define a custom event, then we have to dispatch that event if we want to run that. The Lightning layout item means the different of that cases. In Lightning Web Component, we are using kebab case. So that's how it looks like, Lightning hyphen layout hyphen item. Then what will be the basic setup for LWC environment? As we all know, LWC component, we have to write HTML, then JS, and then meta XML file, and that we cannot use the standard out of the box which was provided, that is a developer console. In that we cannot write this HTML JavaScript files. So for that, we have to set up the environment. We have to install first Salesforce CLI. It's a command line interface. The Salesforce CLI is a powerful command line interface that simplifies development and build automation when working with Salesforce Org. Then we have to install VS Code. Visual Studio Code is the go-to code editor for Salesforce developers. It's free, open source, and available for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. This editor has easy to install extensions for syntax highlighting, code completion, and many more. Then we have to install Salesforce extension pack. So it will hold all the required things which we want to have in our VS Code so that we can work on the development part of Salesforce or in Apex. Then we have to set up the default org. So we have to authorize the org in which we want to work, or which we want data from, or which we want to deploy our data or code. So the next is LWC properties. So there are public properties, private properties. Public properties are decorated with @API. Parent component can set the values for these properties on child component. So the properties will be declared in child component. Parent components can call and they can set the values according to the business logic or need. Private properties are decorated with @track, only accessible within the component itself. It is not like if you have defined it in a child component, then you can access it in parent component like in @API. So private properties can be accessible, can be used in the components in which they are defined. So, oh sorry, this is the LWC properties. Then we have decorators in LWC @API, @track, and @wire. So @API is for making properties or method public, so it can be used by another components like child to parent communication or child to parent if we want. If we have defined something in child and if in parent we want to override that particular message, and if we want a different message according to business logic, then we can write it. The property for that particular message field or message attribute will be set to @API to make it a public property. @track for making private, for making properties private, so only in the component where that particular field is there, in that particular component only we can change that value. @wire is to read Salesforce data. So that's all for LWC decorators.